So it's been brought to my attention that TripRadar is not just introduced in Canada or in the US, but it's actually making its way around the world because Uber is pushing it out more, like in Japan or Australia. And for wherever you're located in the world, if you are looking at videos about TripRadar with Uber Eats because it's being introduced to your market, then I can say this much: you have come to the right video. Now, for those that are new to my channel and it's your first time stumbling along here, my name is Ash, and I am a gig worker on the south shore of Montreal, Quebec. And currently I work for Uber Eats, for DoorDash, for Skip the Dishes, and previously I used to work for Instacart. Now, TripRadar is not something I'm not familiar with because it's been around for a while, to the point that I even made a video about it back when I even had purple hair. Now, I want to give a more fresh note about TripRadar because it's being brought up a lot more, because it's being brought to more markets. This way, I know for a fact you have the more recent update of what TripRadar is. Now, I will be using some old previous screenshots because the screenshots are still relevant to today's usage, and I'm going to update you on things. So first of all, what is TripRadar? Well, the way I look at it is it's that Uber Eats is trying to get over their leftover scraps. So TripRadar is a system that puts into place for these leftover orders that you say no to. Either you say no or another driver says no. Now, the thing with TripRadar, and this is something you got to watch out for, is you could be saying no, and it's a good thing, because Uber does not factor in where you are located. The downfall about TripRadar is, let's say it's a McDonald's order. You really got to look out on TripRadar. Because if I'm in Brossard, for example, it could send me a McDonald's order on TripRadar in Greenfield Park, in St. Hubert, or wherever they need that order to be fetched. And the problem with TripRadar is no, you are not paid from your location to that restaurant. That's why Uber likes to implement it. Now, I've noticed in recent days anyways, Uber will send out 10-kilometer orders with only $3 of a base fare, but if your tip is generous, you're making money. So I do think that Uber is pushing that factor on all orders, regardless if it's TripRadar orders or not. Now, the TripRadar orders can come in at any time that they want. And if you're new to TripRadar, I will say this: expect to be flooded with orders, because if Uber is pushing it in your market, it's because they need it. But it will decrease if your market decreases on order volume. Now, another thing that I hate to break to you lovelies, because it breaks my heart too, but it's the truth: you cannot disable TripRadar on your phone. I've looked everywhere, I've asked other drivers. No, we cannot disable TripRadar. So no matter what we choose, it's gonna stay there. Now, I think TripRadar honestly is run by some bots, and I'll explain why. There are some unicorn orders, which is like the one-in-a-lifetime amazing orders that you never see on regular orders, that are put on TripRadar. Why would anybody not take them is beyond me. But they show up on TripRadar. But every single time I try to click to accept an order like that, it's always that it's matched to another driver. Now, what I believe is happening with that is that it's not that there's an actual really good beneficial money-making order on there for TripRadar. I believe it's Uber trying to entice us to make it look like TripRadar is good, so that we will be more involved with Uber and prey on TripRadar offers and maybe take more. I don't think it's a case scenario of a really, really good offer. Now, I have had it that I've had some really good offers with TripRadar, but I'm very keen on it. If I'm not near the restaurant, I'm not going to accept it. If it's a good price, but I still got to go 6, 7, or 8 kilometers out to a restaurant, and they're not paying me for that, hell no, I'm not accepting that order. But at the end of the day, Uber doesn't care, because they're just going to flush out those orders to other people. I do think there's bots involved on TripRadar, but I can't confirm it. And if you think so too in your experience with TripRadar, please comment down below, my lovelies, because this topic is increasing more amongst the Uber community. Wow, that's a heavy word. Because of the fact that TripRadar is going around the world, and there's nothing that we can do to pretty much stop it. Now, overall, I will say this: 98% of my offers from TripRadar get declined. Now, does declining orders from TripRadar hurt your acceptance rate? No. Your acceptance rate will not be impacted if you decline TripRadar offers. But what does happen a lot of the time is you decline the offer and then it's going to come in as a regular offer, and then you decline it, and guess what happens? That does hit your acceptance rate. So it's a catch-22 when it comes to Uber Eats and TripRadar and what they allow for it to count and not count. But at the end of the day, can you get some good offers with TripRadar? Yes, you can. And what I do appreciate about TripRadar is if it's in the middle of the afternoon and I don't have anything good coming in, at least I know if there's a leftover order and it's not bad for me to take, I can still have more opportunity to make money. The only thing I hate about TripRadar, the absolute most, is that when an order comes in, if you don't click to shut off that order, you're not going to get a standard order coming in. So TripRadar takes priority. And the problem is no matter what we do, drivers are getting hit left, right, and center with traffic violations for not being hands-free because they're touching their phone to remove an order. Now, I can understand that the police has their job and we have our job, but at the end of the day, it's Uber making it more complex because we are supposed to be hands-free and we already take the risk when it comes to accepting an order, but that's just how the gig apps work, and that's how it works for pretty much all of them. But with TripRadar, it's an added click that you're going to be doing pretty often, especially if it's newly introduced to your area, that you don't see when it comes to regular orders. So I hope that this helps you lovelies out when it comes to TripRadar, and I'll catch you lovelies in the next video.